We had a blast last week in Munising, Michigan. We experienced a few waterfalls and natural wonders of the Upper Peninsula. After taking a sunset cruise at Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore and pulling ourselves across a large spring on a self-operated raft, we are crossing the Mighty Mackinac Bridge into the Lower Peninsula, where we will be spending the next week in Mackinaw City. Mackinaw City sits on the northern tip of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. To get to the Lower Peninsula, we had to cross the Mackinac Bridge, known as the Mighty Mack. This bridge was completed in 1957, and when it was built, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world. That has since been surpassed, but it is still a beautiful and magnificent bridge, spanning 5 miles across the Straits of Mackinac, connecting St. Ignace in the Upper Peninsula to Mackinaw City in the Lower Peninsula. Crossing the straits at 200 feet above the water makes for an amazing view. The bridge can be so intimidating to some that there is a service for those who don't want to drive across it. For a fee, someone will drive your vehicle over the bridge for you. Check the wind advisory for the bridge before crossing, as the Mackinac Bridge Authority has restrictions depending on wind speeds over the straits. We thankfully crossed on a beautiful, clear day. It costs $4 for a passenger vehicle to cross, and according to their website, it costs $5 per axle when hauling a trailer. However, when we crossed, we were only charged $8 for our truck and camper. This was one of the coolest bridges either of us has had the pleasure of crossing. We spent the week at Mackinaw Mill Creek Camping. This was easily the largest campground we have ever stayed at. There is a park store with everything you could possibly ever need while camping, and they also serve a few breakfast and lunch items as well. You can rent bikes here too, which is a wonderful way to get around this large park. Although we felt the sites were way too close for our liking, we did enjoy the vast openness of their shoreline. There were multiple fire pits along the shore, as well as benches where you could sit and enjoy the view of the bridge and Mackinac Island across the way. There was a day or two when we didn't have a neighbor next to us, and we got to enjoy the view of Lake Huron from our camper. Overall, even though we don't like the close sites and the insane number of sites at a campground like this, we did thoroughly enjoy our time staying here. The employees were very friendly and helpful, the price was very reasonable, and the ability to enjoy the view on the campground shoreline was incredible. We would absolutely recommend this campground, and we would stay here again if we are in the area. While the highlight of this week is obviously visiting the famed Mackinac Island, we found a few other things to do in the area as well. On the north side of Mackinaw City is Michilimackinac State Park, Michigan's second state park. This park is home to the old Mackinac Point Lighthouse and colonial Michilimackinac. The park offers an up-close view of the Mighty Mackinac Bridge. Fort Michilimackinac was a French fort starting in 1715 until 1761 when the British took control of it. During the American Revolution, the British built Fort Mackinac on nearby Mackinac Island and abandoned and burned Fort Michilimackinac. The area became a park and eventually one of North America's longest ongoing excavation projects, as archaeologists attempted to piece together the original fort and fur trading village. The old Mackinac Point Lighthouse began operations in 1892 with a light visible to ships 16 miles away. This was an important lighthouse on the Straits of Mackinac, as it was opposite the turning point for ships making their way on the busy and treacherous crossroads between Lakes Michigan and Huron, known as the Straits of Mackinac. It was in operation until 1958 and now serves as a maritime museum. Wilderness State Park is just outside of Mackinac City and offers a large campground as well as hiking opportunities. There are 26 miles of shoreline and pine forest in this park, and it is one of the most diverse forested dune and swale areas of Michigan. More than 100 species of birds have been found here, including the endangered piping plover, who relies on the pristine cobblestone shoreline for nesting. We took part of the Nebo Trail to the Hemlock Loop. This was a nice loop that took us through the forest, where of course we found a ton of cool mushrooms. Eventually we got to Mount Nebo, where the trail got very steep while climbing up this hill.
That looked like a little mound, but we just went straight up the dang thing. That trail was pretty steep, straight up the side of this big mound here. And there's just some ruins at the top. Then we continue on this Hemlock Loop Trail.
After hiking the Hemlock Loop, we drove through the rest of the park, down to the end of a long and narrow gravel road. Here there is a piping plover nesting area along the beach. The endangered piping plover requires undisturbed shoreline to nest, and too much human disturbance can cause them to abandon their nests. The undisturbed shoreline of Wilderness State Park provides a perfect nesting area for the piping plover. Vehicle traffic is prohibited on the beach, and dogs are not allowed on the beach from April 15th through August 31st during the piping plover nesting period. This is a very quiet area, and we got some good views of Lake Michigan here. The state park is also a designated dark sky preserve and is just 9 miles away from Headlands Dark Sky Park. Cheboygan is a small and charming city nearby. The Cheboygan Rear Crib Light sits in Gordon Turner Park, next to the lake. It is called a light and not a lighthouse because it does not contain a structure for a keeper to live in. The light was originally built in 1884 on a crib, or an artificial island in the lake. In 1984, after it was long considered obsolete, it was removed from the crib and placed in its current spot on the Gordon Turner Park Pier. Cheboygan State Park was a wonderful place to stop and go for a walk. The campground was closed for renovations, but we were able to do a hike in the day-use area. The Blue Trail took us through the forest where we could eventually get on the Green Trail. This trail took us to an opening in the trees and down to the shore of Lake Huron.
And it. Hey, bud. Hey, Maker.
We walked along the beach for quite a ways, enjoying the beautiful and peaceful views of this great lake. The main event this week was a day trip to Mackinac Island. This island has long been a vacation destination in the Midwest. It is packed with history and is most well known for its Mackinac Island Fudge, and the fact that motor vehicles are not allowed on the island. Whether you are staying at a hotel or just coming up for a day trip, or even if you live on the island, you will have to get around by foot, bike, or horse. The only automobiles allowed are emergency vehicles, and the absence of cars along with the historical buildings gives visitors a feel that they are stepping back in time. We got up early in the morning and made the short drive to the Mackinac City ferry area. Ferry boats have been taking passengers to Mackinac Island since the late 1800s. There are 2 ferry companies you can choose from, Shepler's and Arnold Transit Company. Both ferries have docks in both Mackinac City and St. Ignace. We chose Arnold Transit Company, and round-trip tickets were $36 per adult. If you want to bring your own bike to the island, it costs $19 per bike to load onto the ferry. Ferries run back and forth from morning until evening, so check the schedule and make sure you don't miss the last ferry leaving the island. There is plenty of parking for ferry goers and complimentary shuttles from parking lots to the docks and back. We learned that fairly recently the free ferry parking was no more. It costs $10 for the day to park across the street from the dock, or $40 if you want dockside parking. We took the 7 a.m. ferry to the island, and everything went smooth as could be. The ferry ride took a total of about 20 minutes from the time we left the Mackinac City dock to when we got off the ferry at Mackinac Island. Bike rentals are everywhere as soon as you get off the ferry. It costs $12 to $18 an hour to rent a bike on the island. We decided we would walk around the main part of the island and take a horse taxi when we got tired. We would have liked to bring our e-bikes since we were interested in biking the 8-mile trail around the island. However, only non-throttled Class 1 e-bikes are allowed on the island for those with mobility issues. We did, however, see plenty of throttled e-bikes while on the island, though we did hear that people who live and work on the island are allowed to have e-bikes. Since we got to the island early to beat the crowds, not a whole lot was open yet, so we decided to take a 10-minute stroll up to the Grand Hotel. The Grand Hotel was opened in 1887 and has hosted 6 U.S. presidents, as well as several other notable people. It is known for its unique rooms and decor, as well as its long porch and incredible view. The Grand Hotel porch is 660 feet long, or 200 meters, and is the world's longest porch. Non-hotel guests can enter the hotel and enjoy the view from this famed porch for an entry fee of $12 per person. The Grand Hotel is also known for traditions such as afternoon tea in the parlor and nightly dancing, as well as a proper dress code after 6:30 p.m. Staying at the Grand Hotel is of course pricey, but there are several different styles of rooms to choose from. we walked back into town to go try some of what Mackinac Island is most known for, fudge. When we got back to downtown, we realized that the power had gone out on the island. This is an unusual event, but it does happen. Some places were able to do cash transactions, but for the most part, the shops were left in the dark. So we decided to explore some more of the island on foot.
Well, we're here on Mackinac Island and the power's out.
Yep, woohoo!
You can hear a generator going in the background, but we haven't really been able to do much since there's no power at places, but we'll find something to do. We're just exploring now.
Yes. One place on the island that didn't need power was Fort Mackinac. At 9:15 a.m., reveille is played and the cannon is fired to mark the opening of the fort. We were able to purchase tickets at the gate and enter the fort, enjoying a few viewpoints on the way up the hill. This fort was built in 1780 when the British abandoned Fort Michilimackinac and moved to Mackinac Island. Americans took control of the fort in 1796. The British recaptured the fort during the War of 1812. In 1814, the Americans attempted to retake the fort unsuccessfully. It was returned to the United States after the war ended. The fort remained an active military installation until 1895. In 1875, President Ulysses S. Grant signed a bill creating Mackinac National Park, the country's second national park. By 1894, the War Department planned to decommission Fort Mackinac, and the next year, the fort and national park were turned over to the state, creating Michigan's first state park. Fort Mackinac consists of 14 buildings, including the Soldiers' Barracks, Guardhouse, blockhouses, reading room, and the Hill Quarters. Every day there are rifle and cannon firing demonstrations at the fort. There are a few rooms in some of the buildings where we could have used some light, but for the most part this was a great place to explore while the power was out. After checking out the fort, we walked back into town to see if the power had come back on. Eventually it did, and shops and restaurants began scrambling to get ready for the crowds that were already beginning to come in by ferry. We were able to eat lunch at the Pink Pony. This restaurant sits inside the Cherokee Hotel and is famous for its dancing pink ponies behind the bar and its incredible outdoor dining views. Keisha enjoyed the chicken BLT melt, and my whitefish tacos were amazing. After lunch, we tried to call a horse-drawn taxi, but we did not have cell service in town on the bottom of the hill. You cannot just hail a horse-drawn taxi, you must call and request a ride. Being unable to call, we once again hoofed it towards Surrey Hill for a 1 p.m. appointment we had for something special. Surrey Hill is a quiet part of the island, home to a few unique attractions. There's the wings of Mackinac Butterfly Conservatory, as well as the Grand Hotel's horse stables and carriage museum. But we were here to make our own souvenir from the island. Keisha, you ready to go make a knife?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's do it. Forge a Memory is a working blacksmith shop started by Chad Osborne, a talented smith who has appeared in 2 episodes of the popular History Channel show Forged in Fire. This blacksmith shop has employees that will help you make your own knife. Their motto is they heat it and you beat it. Appointments are preferred, but they do take walk-ups if they are not busy. You can choose from 3 different knife sizes and price points. The choices are a pony horseshoe, regular horseshoe, and a railroad spike. All prices include a leather sheath of your choosing. We went with a regular horseshoe knife, and a very friendly and helpful employee heated up the horseshoe and then let Keisha hammer it out, guiding her along the way. After drawing out the blade, the employee took care of the finishing touches, and we ended up with a very cool, customized working knife and sheath. So you made a knife today, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome! This was quite a cool experience, and we now have a completely unique souvenir from Mackinac Island. After making a knife, we checked out the Grand Hotel Stables and Carriage Museum across the road. Admission is free, and there are a lot of neat old carriages on display. We even got to see a couple horses get dressed up before heading out with the Grand Hotel carriage. By this time we were exhausted, and thankfully we were able to call a taxi since we had cell service on the hill. We took the taxi back into town to pick up some fudge on our way to the ferry. We had tried a few samples of fudge at a couple of places, including the famous Murdoch's. But we decided we liked the fudge at Joann's the best. We got 3 slices to go and hopped back on the ferry. When taking the ferry back, make sure you go to the correct dock based on whether you are going back to St. Ignace or Mackinac City. Overall, we felt that Mackinac Island was a bit overhyped. It probably would have been more enjoyable if we had rented bikes and got away from the crowds in town. However, between the ferry tickets and parking for the ferry, bike rentals, and horse carriage rides, the transportation costs alone on the island can quickly add up. And that's before you grab some lunch and a drink and take home some fudge and any other souvenirs you might pick up. Staying on the island would be a unique experience as you can enjoy the beauty of the island before and after the day trip ferry crowds come in or leave. But again, it would be expensive with having to park your car on the mainland, buy a ferry ticket, and not to mention the extravagant cost for the Grand Hotel or the more affordable smaller hotels and B&Bs. While we enjoyed the history of this island and the magical allure of stepping back in time, Mackinac Island may not be the best place to go if you are on a budget. And while they do a great job keeping the main streets clean, there is still, of course, obstacles in the road. We did enjoy our stay at Mackinaw Mill Creek Camping, and it was hard to leave that incredible view behind. Stay tuned as we continue to explore more of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. Next week, we will be taking a dip in the beautifully colored Torch Lake and exploring the town of Charlevoix. We would appreciate if you could like and subscribe to follow along with more of our adventures as we wander America. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.